Bill Maher is done with the Democrat Party. He's just a symbol of how the Democrat Party is dead and over because it was taken over by communists. Welcome to Doug in Exile. Here's Bill Maher.
You told J.D. Vance you're open. Your vote is up for grabs.
Yes, my vote is in play because it can't be Trump running. Mm-hmm. So I'm not living in communist America. I mean, I know the talking point is that, well, it's not communism, it's socialism. Okay, I've read the quotes from the DSA platform, from their own mouths. Don't tell me I'm not seeing what I am seeing. And DSA, again, they say things like, takeover of key industries, government. That's communism.
The Democrat Socialists of America are doing a giant lie campaign so that you don't know that they're really communists. And Democrats are pushing back. That's the theme of this show. I'm quoting mostly the left and Democrats in this one. Here's one. This is Jamie Metzel. I am a lifelong Democrat. I served on President Clinton's National Security Council and in the State Department under Madeleine Albright. I am also a lifelong human rights and civil rights advocate. But every Democrat and every American should recognize that the DSA, Democrat Socialists of America, represents a fundamental threat to our party and our country. This is not a story about a few idealists seeking to reduce healthcare costs. It's about a small group of radical extremists pursuing a strategy to take over the Democrat Party and ultimately our country in order to impose an agenda that would devastate our economy and fundamentally dismantle our system of government. This is what the Democrat Party is going to be now. They're communist, and they're going to create human suffering on a world scale that we've never seen before, which is what happens anytime you deal with these socialists. Here's Andy No. We'll hear more from him later in this video, but here he said they're communists and they were welcomed into Democrat institutions because Democrats want power. I hope they pay heavily for this betrayal of America. They'll either pay heavily or they'll completely take over the country with communism. Here's Democrat Van Jones calling out his own party for the takeover.
You live in a world where we said, well, you can be a terrorist if you want to, as long as you feel oppressed. And anybody can get blown up at any time and people will make excuses for it. Is that a better world? Is that progress? Or is that regressing to a lawless, chaotic state? If we lived in a world where people could literally get elected to office with the only qualification being that they went and celebrated a mass murder of Israelis, if all elected officials celebrated mass murders, is that a better world or a worse world?
That's Mamdani, by the way, that celebrated the mass murder of Israelis. They celebrated on that day, and that's pretty far out there, but it's pretty central now to the Democrat Party, where they all despise Israel as a party platform.
These are not progressive ideas. These are regressive ideas. And I'm old enough to know the difference. And you're smart enough to know the difference. Ideas that make the world better, that help us progress to a better place. Those are the ideals of the Democratic Party. If you are not...
No, the Democrat Party now thinks that destroying Israel does save the world. It's a formally anti-Semitic party now. And the fight is within the Democrat Party. And I champion that because I want all Democrats to lose, no matter what. I'm across the board anti-Democrat because I believe they create human suffering around the world. Here's the fight between Hakeem Jeffries and Bernie Sanders. Hakeem Jeffries confronts Bernie Sanders against meddling in House primaries to support Democrat socialists. So now Hakeem Jeffries is saying, whoa, you socialists are being very bad. And here's Bernie Sanders pushing back saying, hey, DNC, hey, normal Hakeem Jeffries, quit letting your billionaires pick Democrat candidates.
And I'll tell you what else people are sick and tired of. They are sick and tired of wealthy campaign contributors determining who the candidates of the Democratic Party will be.
This is, of course, a lie because no one has more rich support than Bernie Sanders, who owns 3 houses, and Mamdani. This is who the billionaire elites are going for, are these socialists.
So I say to the Democratic leadership, get your super PACs out of these primaries.
Get them out, Hakeem Jeffries. Get them out of our primary.
And let the people decide who their candidate will be. Brothers and sisters, let me...
Comrades, brothers and sisters. That is like pure propaganda. Here's Scott Jennings.
I think to boil this down to just insurgent versus establishment overlooks what many of these people are running on. They're simply beyond insurgency here. I mean, you've got people out there winning primaries that want to abolish borders, abolish ICE, abolish prisons, abolish the police, abolish the United States Senate. This is well outside the bounds of normal political discourse, and it's all happening, in the Democratic Party. I don't think the Democratic Party leadership understands they've already been overwhelmed, and it's just a matter of time before these views become the mainstream platform, and that's what they're going to end up running on in 2028 as well.
The Democrat Party has already been taken over by communists, and they're going to run on it in 2028. Here's more Bill Maher.
I mean, you get some Democrats,
Democrats are cowardly.
Yeah.
They're cowardly. Their party is being taken over now by, every day I hear about a new, very radical. I feel very good about like 10, whenever years ago, like I did lose fans because, I wasn't going to go along with some of this crazy stuff on the left too. I didn't change really on what I thought about the right, but just, I can't sit and just not notice stuff, which people seem to want to do because it's all about my team or your team. But yeah, there's some crazy stuff, when we're cheering for the Intifada, I'm out.
And yes, they are cheering for the Intifada, the genocidal destruction of Israel, as a formal part of their party. So Bill Maher, by the way, the other insane lunatic stuff he's talking about is the radical gender ideology, because with communism, they found common ground in all of these different disparate, they're disconnected radical ideas, including terrorist bombings that they're for. Here's Andy No. He's one of my favorite journalists. I've actually spoken with him before, years ago, but he got hit in the head with a brick when he was exposing Antifa.
But the violence in America has been going on for 70 years by the far left. Going back to since the 60s, there's been terror group after terror group that have committed all acts of atrocities.
I don't know if you heard him say this, but this has been going on for 70 years. I'll just share one statistic, which is between 1971 and 1972. In New York alone, there were 2,500 terrorist bombings. These are the Weather Underground, the far left radical communists in America. And people don't report on that enough.
Killings, jailbreaks, bank robberies, assassinations. And what's happened is that through institutional capture over the decades, from legacy institutions in media and in academia, it's created this system where the denial of the existence of far left terrorism is so mainstream to the point where these type of, like what happened in the US Capitol with Secretary Rubio, there was huge pushback by Democrats, liberals, and media. And what was so important about this summit, this international summit, to talk about radical left-wing terrorism, is that it was the first time that the U.S. State Department has ever acknowledged publicly in an international forum that this is a real problem. And addressing any type of problem that exists, the first step is to acknowledge that there's a problem. And because there's been a refusal to acknowledge it by Democrats, and they hold power in most urban jurisdictions in the United States, it's empowered more terrorism. We've had killings, assassinations, bombings, and shootings. This is not just an American phenomenon.
Because they won't call it out. They won't acknowledge it, including their own party, as Bill Maher said. They're cowards and they're weak. They're going to allow this thing to run rampant on the Democrat Party. And for that reason, the Democrat Party, as you once knew it, is dead. You now have a choice between Republican conservatives and communists in America. I'm Doug in exile.